Hello, friends. We are very interested to know which cities you are listening to us from, so quickly like and write in the comments where you are from. Also, share what shocking stories happened in your city or maybe even with you personally. Subscribe because the next story could be about your city or even your personal drama. Now let's dive into a new exciting story. Jake sat down on the soft carpet in the living room, surrounded by colorful blocks that Lily, his 2-year-old daughter, was excitedly stacking into a wobbly tower. Their modest home in the Selwood neighborhood of Portland was filled with warmth. The smell of freshly brewed coffee, the dim light of a floor lamp, the low murmur of a TV playing a beer commercial. The typical Oregon rain was drizzling outside, pattering on the roof. Jake, an engineer at a technology company, loved these evenings, the moments when the world narrowed down to him and Lily. "Dad, look! Higher!" Lily, with her curly blonde locks, jumped up, trying to reach the top of the tower. Her blue eyes sparkled, as if building this pile of plastic was the greatest feat. "Wow, champion!" Jake smiled, moving the red cube. "One more, and it will be like a skyscraper. Scraper." Lily frowned, repeating the word as if tasting it. "Well, such tall buildings as in the center where my mother works." Lily nodded, although she clearly didn't understand, and enthusiastically plopped the cube onto the tower. The structure swayed, but stood firm. Jake laughed, feeling the fatigue from the day's work dissolve. His job at a tech startup was exhausting, endless codes, meetings, deadlines, but coming home to Lily always made everything better. He glanced at his watch. 19:45. Kate, his wife, should have been back an hour ago. She worked as a marketer for a fashion agency in downtown Portland, and delays became common. Jake got used to it, but today something stabbed in his chest. Maybe because she didn't respond to his message, asking what time she would be home. "Dad, where's Mom?" Lily, as if reading his thoughts, looked at the front door. "Coming soon, baby." "She has an important meeting," Jake answered, trying to sound confident. He reached out to Lily, straightening a clip that had fallen out of her hair. "Do you want us to build another tower? For Mom?" "Yes." Lily clapped her hands, and the cubes flew into a pile again. Jake took out his phone to check for news from Kate. The screen was blank, only his own message. "Are you coming soon?" Lily asks. He frowned, but forced himself to put the phone down. She's busy, he thought. Kate was always on the wave. Presentations, clients, cocktail parties. Her world, full of glossy offices and charismatic colleagues, was so far from his measured life as an engineer. He remembered how they met 5 years ago. Jake was then on the brink. His mother, who worked as a waitress and cleaner, died of cancer, leaving him alone at 25. He dropped out of college, drowning in debt and depression. Kate, a marketing student from a wealthy family, came into his life like a whirlwind, bright, confident, with an infectious laugh. She pushed him back to school, helped him with his resume, even paid some of his bills until he got back on his feet. Their love seemed unbreakable, despite the sidelong glances of her parents, who considered Jake not from their circle. The door clicked and Jake jumped. Kate came in, brushing rain from her cloak. Her dark hair was slightly disheveled, but she looked, as always, impeccable. A black dress, heels, light makeup that emphasized her cheekbones. In her hands is a bag from an expensive brand, a gift from her mother. "Mommy!" Lily jumped up, threw the dice, and ran to Kate. "Hello, my girl." Kate picked up Lily, spinning her around. "Are you building skyscrapers without me?" Dad helped. Lily proudly pointed to the tower. "Well done, Dad." Kate smiled at Jake, but her gaze was cursory, almost distant. She set Lily down on the floor and took off her cloak, hanging it on a hook. "It took a long time," Jake noted, trying not to sound like a reproach. He rose from the carpet, collecting the scattered cubes. "Everything is fine." "Oh yes, it's just a mess." Kate waved her hand, heading towards the kitchen. "The client is new, capricious. I had to stay late to sort everything out. Would you like some coffee? I'm dying without caffeine." "I already made it, in the coffee pot," Jake answered, following her. Kate opened the refrigerator, taking out a bottle of water. He noticed her quickly put the phone in her pocket as the screen lit up. "Lily was waiting for you," I asked. "Oh, my sweetie," Kate turned around, smiling at Lily, who was fiddling with the blocks. "Mommy will be with you all day tomorrow, I promise. Maybe we can go to a cafe." "With pancakes?" Lily raised her head, her eyes lit up. "Of course, with pancakes." Kate laughed, but Jake noticed that the laugh was a little forced. He leaned against the kitchen counter, watching Kate drink water. Her movements were abrupt, as if she was in a hurry. Jake wanted to ask who the client was, but decided against it. The last time he inquired about her work, Kate joked that he was too serious for her glamorous world. "How is your day?" Kate asked, putting the bottle on the table. "Did you code something brilliant?" "An ordinary day. Fixed bugs, drank coffee, thought about you and Lily." Jake shrugged, trying to smile. "Yours seems to be more interesting." "Well, not really. There's just a lot of fuss." Kate walked up to Lily, sitting down next to her. "Come on, baby, show me your tower." Jake watched Kate play with Lily, but something in her behavior bothered him. She was here, but as if not quite. He remembered how a couple of weeks ago she came home with a new perfume that he didn't recognize. Then she said it was a gift from a colleague, and he didn't dig. Now this little thing popped up in my memory like a thorn. "Kate," he began when Lily became interested in the cubes. "Are you okay? You're kind of, I don't know, twitchy." "Twitchy." Kate raised an eyebrow at him. "Jake, I'm just tired. The job, is not just writing code. We have clients, deadlines, this whole circus." "I understand." He raised his hands in surrender. "It's just, Lily is bored." "Me too." Kate sighed, her face softening. She walked up to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Sorry, honey. I'm really tired. Tomorrow will be better, I promise. We'll spend the day together, all three of us. Maybe Mount Tabor Park. Lily loves swings." "Sounds great," Jake nodded, feeling the tension release a little. He hugged her, inhaling the familiar scent of her shampoo. "I just want us to be together." "We are together." Kate kissed him on the cheek, but quickly pulled away. "I'll go take a shower." "Lily, don't destroy the tower until I return." "I won't." Lily waved to her, already busy with the new design. Jake watched Kate go to the bathroom and tried to push away his anxiety. He returned to Lily, helping her add the cube. But the thought was spinning in my head. Why did she hide the phone so quickly? He shook his head, dispelling suspicion. Kate loved him. She was Lily's mother, his salvation after his mother's death. It's just fatigue, nothing more. "Dad, look." Lily pointed to the tower, now tilting dangerously. "Wow, this is a masterpiece." Jake picked her up, spinning her around. Lily squealed with joy, and for a moment all doubts dissolved in her laughter. But when he put Lily to bed, reading her The Glutton Caterpillar, the anxiety returned. Kate came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, and immediately took her phone, going into the bedroom. Jake finished the story, kissed Lily on the forehead, and quietly closed the door to her room. In the living room, he noticed Kate's coat casually thrown on a chair. The edge of a business card was sticking out of his pocket. He froze, fighting the urge to check. It would be wrong, but my heart beat louder. "Jake, are you coming?" Kate's voice from the bedroom was soft, but with a hint of impatience. "Yes, now." He put the business card back without looking at it. Going up to the bedroom, he saw Kate, already in her pajamas, scrolling through something on her phone. She smiled, but the screen immediately went dark. "Lily fell asleep?" she asked, putting the phone on the nightstand. Like an angel, Jake sat on the bed, looking at her. "Kate, listen. If something is wrong, you'll tell me, right?" "Jesus, Jake." She rolled her eyes, but smiled. "Everything is fine. Just work. Let's sleep, otherwise I'll be like a zombie tomorrow." He nodded, lying down next to her. But when the lights went out and Kate turned away, curled up in a ball, Jake was staring at the ceiling. The rain outside the window picked up, tapping on the glass as a reminder of something he didn't want to see just yet. The Selwood house was their first home together. Jake remembered how they moved here 3 years ago, when Kate was pregnant with Lily. He painted the walls while Kate picked out the curtains, laughing at his inability to hold a brush. Then they were happy. But now, looking at the dark ceiling, he felt that laughter is getting further and further away. He closed his eyes, trying to remember Kate as she used to be, the girl who sat with him at night, helping him write code for coursework, who danced with him in the rain in the park. But the images were confused, and instead of them, her face emerged today distant, with a quick glance, hiding the phone. The morning in Portland greeted Jake with gray skies and light rain that never seemed to stop. He was driving his old Honda Civic down I-5, heading to the offices of a tech startup in suburban Beaverton. The radio was playing indie rock quietly, but Jake was barely listening, lost in thought. The morning Starbucks coffee in the cup holder was already cold. He thought about Kate, about her distant look yesterday, about how she hid the phone. It was a small thing, but this little thing stuck like a thorn. Jake glanced at his reflection in the side mirror. Short brown hair, light stubble, tired green eyes. He was 30, but he felt older. Working as an engineer was exhausting, but he loved it for its stability, something he never had as a child. His mother, Marge, raised him alone, balancing shifts as a diner waitress and part-time cleaning jobs. They lived in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of Portland that was drafty in the winter and smelled musty in the summer. Marge always smiled, even when the bills were piled up on the kitchen table, but Jake saw her tiredness. When she died 5 years ago, it seemed to him that the world had collapsed. Kate then became his salvation. He remembered how they met at a coffee shop near campus. He was depressed as a college dropout. She was bright, confident, with perfect posture and an expensive bag. Kate grew up in the West Hills, an area where houses cost millions and children went to private schools. Her father, Richard, was a lawyer. Her mother, Helen, was involved in charity work and social events. Kate could have chosen anyone, but she chose him, a guy who could barely make ends meet. It was a miracle, Jake thought as he pulled into the office parking lot. The startup office where he worked was typical Portland. Open space, brick walls, a coffee machine that cost more than his monthly salary. Jake nodded to his colleagues as he sat down at his desk with 3 monitors. His job, writing code for cloud-based software, required focus, but today his thoughts were confused. He opened Slack, checking messages from the team, but instead took out his phone and texted Kate. "Are you home early today? Lily wants to go to the park." The answer came 10 minutes later. "I'll try, but we're having a cocktail party with clients. Maybe I'll pick you up and let's go together." Jake frowned. Kate's cocktail parties were part of her job, but he hated them. Loud music, people in expensive suits, talking about things that didn't concern him. He typed, "Maybe I'd rather stay with Lily," but erased it and wrote, "Okay, right, what time?" "Hey Jake, are you coming with us for lunch?" Tom, his colleague, leaned out from behind the partition. A new food court was opened in the center. "No, I took it with me." Jake patted the lunchbox. "Budget, you know." Tom grinned. "Well, you are an economist. Okay, I'll tell you if there's anything tasty there." Jake opened the sandwich container he had assembled that morning and returned to the code. But my thoughts wandered back to Kate. Her world of fashion agency in downtown Portland, glass offices, loft parties was foreign to him. He went to a couple of her events, but felt out of place. His jeans and shirt from Target contrasted sharply with the designer outfits of her colleagues. Kate always said she didn't care about it, but Jake noticed how she came alive in that environment, how her eyes sparkled when she talked about work. By evening, the rain had subsided, and Jake, having changed into a clean shirt, went to the center where Kate had rented a loft for a party. He left the car in the parking lot and entered the building, feeling his heartbeat a little faster. The loft was full of people, men in jackets, women in dresses, waiters with trays of champagne. Music, something fashionable, with deep bass, was buzzing in my chest. Jake made his way through the crowd, looking for Kate. She stood at the bar, wearing a black dress that emphasized her figure, with a glass of wine in her hand. Next to her was a man tall, with dark hair, wearing a perfectly fitting suit. They laughed, and Kate lightly touched his arm. Jake froze, feeling his stomach tighten. He took a step forward, and Kate noticed him. Jake, she smiled, waving at him. Come here, I'll introduce you. He approached, trying to look relaxed. The man turned, holding out his hand. Marcus, the new creative director, he introduced himself with a slight smile. His voice was deep, with a faint accent, perhaps Californian. Jake, Kate's husband, he answered, shaking her hand. Marcus's handshake was firm, almost demonstrative. Nice to finally meet you, Marcus said, looking at Kate. She told me a lot about you. Is it true? Jake looked at Kate, trying to catch her reaction. She smiled, but her eyes quickly darted to Marcus. Of course, Kate put the glass on the counter. Marcus, tell Jake about our new project. It's just a bomb. Marcus started talking about some kind of advertising campaign for a startup related to environmentally friendly products. Jake nodded, but the words flew by. He looked at Kate, how she leaned closer to Marcus, how her laugh sounded a little louder than usual. It was subtle, but Jake knew her too well, or thought he did. Sounds cool, he interrupted, feeling out of place. Kate, how long are you here? I was thinking maybe we could pick Lily up from the nanny early. Oh yes, Kate looked at her watch. Just an hour, okay? This is important for work. Marcus, you don't mind if I steal my husband to the dance, do you? Go have fun. Marcus raised his glass, his smile too friendly. Kate took Jake's hand, leading him to the dance floor. The music changed to something slow, and they began to sway in the crowd. Jake hugged her, feeling the warmth of her body, but his thoughts did not let go. He seems charismatic, Jake said, trying to sound neutral. Marcus? Yes, he is like that. A genius at his job, Kate shrugged. But it's just a job, Jake. You're not jealous, are you? No, he lied, looking into her eyes. It's just, you come alive at these parties. I sometimes feel like I can't keep up. Kate stopped, her face softening. She put her hand on his cheek. Hey, you are my home. These parties are just noise. You and Lily are real. Jake nodded, willing himself to believe it. They danced a little more, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Kate was slipping away. When they returned to the bar, Marcus was already chatting with another group, but his gaze lingered on Kate for a second. Jake clenched his teeth. I'll go get some water, he said, walking away. He ordered a soda at the bar, watching Kate from afar. She was talking to Marcus again, and their laughter was ear-piercing. Jake finished his soda and decided it was time to go home. He walked up to Kate, interrupting their conversation. I'll go get Lily, he said. How are you, with me or later? Later, Kate touched his arm. Sorry, honey, I need to finish a couple of conversations. See you at home? Yeah, Jake nodded, feeling something clench inside. Don't be late. He went outside, where the air smelled of rain and wet asphalt. Getting into the car, he turned on the radio, but then turned it off. The silence was louder. I thought about my mother, about how she always said, trust, but verify. Then he laughed about it. Now the words sounded different. Jake started the engine, heading towards the babysitter's house. Jake woke up to Lily's quiet crying coming from the nursery. It was still dark outside their house in Selwood, and the faint light of the street lamps filtered through the curtains. He glanced at the clock on his nightstand, 5:12 m. Kate, lying next to him, slept curled up under the covers, her dark hair scattered across the pillow. Jake quietly slipped out of bed, trying not to wake her, and headed towards Lily. In the nursery, he found his daughter standing in her crib, clutching her stuffed bunny. Her cheeks were wet with tears. Hey, baby, what happened? Jake whispered, picking her up in his arms. Lily clung to him, sobbing. The rabbit fell, she muttered, pointing to the floor where the toy lay. It's okay, we'll save him, Jake smiled, picking up the rabbit and handing it to Lily. He rocked her, humming the lullaby his mother sang until Lily yawned and closed her eyes. After putting her back in her crib, he straightened the blanket and returned to the bedroom. Kate was still asleep, her breathing even. Jake lay down, but sleep did not come. He looked at the ceiling, listening to the rain pattering on the roof. My thoughts returned to last night's party. Kate laughing with Marcus, her hand touching his elbow, their gaze for too long. He tried to brush it off, reminding himself that Kate was right, this was her job, her world. But something didn't give me peace. He turned on his side, and his gaze fell on Kate's phone, lying on the nightstand. The screen suddenly lit up, displaying a notification. Jake froze. The clock showed 5:14 m. Who writes at a time like this? He reached out, fighting the guilt, and took the phone. The screen showed a message from Mar vertical bar 4:54 m. You made my evening. Jake's heart began to pound. He stared at the words, feeling the blood rush to his temples. You made my evening. What does it mean? He wanted to unlock the phone, but didn't know the password. Kate had changed it a couple of months ago, saying it was for security. Jake put the phone back, trying to breathe more calmly. It doesn't mean anything, he told himself. Maybe it's about work. But at 4:54 am, Kate stirred, muttering something in her sleep. Jake looked at her, trying to see the girl who had sat with him in the diner 5 years ago, helping him write his resume when he was at his lowest. After his mother died, when cancer took her within 6 months, Jake lost everything. His job, his studies, his hope. Kate was his anchor then. She paid for his coffee, made him get up in the morning, even convinced her father to give Jake an internship at a law firm so he could earn rent. He couldn't have done it without her. How could he suspect her? But the message did not leave my head. Jake stood up, walked into the kitchen, and turned on the coffee machine. As the coffee dripped into his mug, he looked at the photo on the refrigerator. Him, Kate, and newborn Lily in the hospital. Kate was glowing then, despite her fatigue, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. Where is Kate now? The coffee burned his tongue, but Jake barely noticed. He returned to the living room, where Lily's blocks were still lying on the carpet. Sitting down on the couch, he opened his laptop to check his work email, but instead stared at the blank screen. My thoughts were spinning. Marcus, the party, the message. He remembered how Kate had become animated when talking about the new project, how her eyes had sparkled when she mentioned Marcus. It wasn't just a job, or so it seemed to him. The bedroom door creaked, and Kate walked out, yawning. She was wearing his old college t-shirt, and her hair was pulled back into a messy bun. She looked cozy, much like before, but Jake couldn't shake the tension. "Why aren't you sleeping?" she asked, squinting in the light. "Did Lily get up?" "Yes, I cried, but I put her to bed," Jake answered, closing the laptop. "Would you like some coffee?" "God, yes." Kate plopped down on a chair at the kitchen counter. "I passed out yesterday. I don't even remember how I went to bed." "Back late," Jake remarked, pouring her coffee. He tried to speak neutrally, but his voice trembled treacherously. "Yo, the party went on for a long time," Kate shrugged, taking the mug. "Clients, love to chat." Marcus held everyone to a standstill. "Marcus," Jake repeated, looking at her. "He seems to be the life of the party." "Well, he's a creative director. That's his job." Kate sipped her coffee without meeting his gaze. "He's really pushing our project. Without him, we would have drowned." Jake nodded, but his gut tightened. He wanted to ask about the message, but the words got stuck. Instead, he said, "Your phone was blinking this morning," someone wrote. Kate froze, her fingers clenching around her mug. She looked on him, eyes narrowing slightly. "Is it true?" she said, placing the mug on the counter. "Probably someone from the team. We stayed up late yesterday discussing the presentation." At 5 in the morning, Jake couldn't contain his skepticism. He looked at her, waiting for her to explain. Kate sighed, rolling her eyes, but her smile was forced. She stood up, took her phone from the nightstand, and unlocked it, glancing briefly at the screen. "Oh, it's Marcus," she said, as if it meant nothing. "I wrote about the presentation. We killed everyone yesterday. The client is delighted. He simply said thanks." "You made my evening," Jake quoted, feeling his throat tighten. He didn't mean to sound accusing, but that's how it came out. Kate looked at him, her eyebrows raised. "Have you read my messages?" "No, it showed up," Jake raised his hands defensively. I didn't dig, Kate. I just saw it. She relaxed, but her gaze was wary. Jake, this is work. Marcus is like that, well, he writes pathetically. Yesterday, we really broke everyone up, and he was emotional. Nothing like that. Okay, Jake said, but the words sounded empty. He wanted to believe it, but something in her tone, in the way she quickly hid the phone, didn't give it. It's just weird at 5 in the morning. Jesus, Jake, Kate rolled her eyes, but her voice softened. She walked up to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. Do you really think I hang out here at night? I work hard so that we can pay for this house, for Lily's kindergarten. You know. I know, Jake nodded, feeling like an idiot. He hugged her, but the hug was awkward. Sorry, I'm just tired, I guess. We're both tired. Kate kissed him on the cheek, but quickly pulled away. I'll go wake up Lily. Today we have a park, right? Yes. Jake forced himself to smile. She's waiting for the swing. Kate went into the nursery and Jake remained at the counter, looking at his mug. He remembered how Kate sat with him in the hospital when his mother died. She held his hand while he cried and promised that they would get through it together. That Kate didn't lie. But this Kate, with her quick glances and evasive answers, was different. Or was he going crazy? He finished his coffee, listening to Kate humming to Lily in the nursery. The rain got heavier outside, and Jake thought he should take an umbrella for the park. But the message in my head was, you made my evening. He closed his eyes, trying to banish suspicion. Kate loved him. She was Lily's mother. It's just a job. Jake sat at his desk in his Beaverton office, staring at the monitor where the cursor blinked on a half-written line of code. The rain was pouring outside, blurring the view of the parking lot, and the indie rock playlist he had turned on to drown out his thoughts was playing quietly in his headphones. But the thoughts did not go away. A message from Marcus, you made my evening, replayed in my head like a broken record. Kate explained that it was about work, and Jake wanted to believe it, but something in her eyes, in her hasty tone, did not give rest. Hey Jake, are you alive? Tom, his colleague, leaned out from behind the partition, chewing an apple. His red hair stuck out in all directions, and on his t-shirt was the logo of some cybersecurity conference. You've been staring at the screen like a zombie for an hour now. Yeah, just thinking. Jake took off his headphones, forcing himself to smile. The code is not written. It happens. Tom plopped down on a chair nearby, taking another bite of the apple. I had the same thing yesterday. And then I went to the bar, drank beer, and bam, an idea. Maybe you need to relax too. Maybe, Jake shrugged, opening Slack to distract himself. But Tom, as always, could not remain silent. Listen, does your Kate still work at that fashion agency? He asked, throwing the stub into the trash. Where are all these hipsters with cocktails and startups? Yeah, Jake nodded, feeling something tense inside. Why do you ask? Yes, Tom grinned, but his eyes were cunning. I just heard from a friend, he's in advertising, that in such offices there are often romances at work. Well, you know, late meetings, wine, all this corporate romance. My friend said that almost every second person there sleeps with someone. Jake froze, his fingers stopping on the keyboard. He looked at Tom, trying to figure out whether he was joking or not. Seriously? He asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. Is this really so open? Well, not exactly openly, Tom shrugged. But you know, when people are together for 10 hours, and even with alcohol, things happen. Especially with these creative types. My friend said that in their office the boss and the designer were messing around for 6 months until his wife found out. Jake felt the blood rush to his temples. He remembered Kate at the party, her laugh with Marcus, the text at 5 in the morning. You made my evening. He swallowed, trying to clear away the images that were popping into his head. Kate's not like that, he said, more to himself than to Tom. She works hard to get projects done. This is not about novels. I'm not talking about her. Tom raised his hands as if in defense. Just chatting. But, you know, if my girlfriend stayed late every night, I would probably take a closer look. Trust, but verify, as they say. Jake forced himself to nod, but Tom's words settled in his chest like stones. He returned to the code, but couldn't concentrate. At lunchtime, he went outside, bought a sandwich from a food truck, and sat on a bench under an awning, watching the rain patter on the asphalt. The phone was in his pocket, and Jake, unable to resist, opened Kate's Instagram. Her profile was full of colorful photos, her at presentations, with colleagues in a bar, against the backdrop of graffiti in downtown Portland. The last post was yesterday, a selfie with the caption, "The team is on top, hash working." In the photo, Kate was smiling, a girl from her agency stood nearby, and Marcus flashed in the corner of the frame, holding a glass. Jake enlarged the photo, peering at Marcus. His smile was too casual, and his gaze was directed at Kate. Or is it imagination? Jake scrolled through her stories, but they were empty. Kate rarely posted them. He opened LinkedIn and found Marcus's profile. Creative director, 10+ years in marketing, ex-Google. Photo in an expensive suit, confident smile. Jake closed the app, feeling like an idiot. What is he even looking for? Returning to the office, he tried to work, but his thoughts were confused. Kate wrote at 3 o'clock. Late again today, meeting with a client. Will you pick up Lily from kindergarten? Jake replied. Okay, what time will you be there? The answer came an hour later. By 10, probably. I love you. Love you? These words were supposed to calm, but instead they cut. Jake remembered Kate saying the same thing when they first started dating. Then she looked into his eyes, and he felt it was true. Now it was just text on the screen. That evening, he picked Lily up from daycare in Selwood. She ran out to him, waving a drawing multicolored scribbles, which she proudly called Daddy's car. Cool, baby, Jake picked her up, kissing the top of her head. It's just like my Honda. For you. Lily thrust the drawing into his hands, and Jake felt his heart clench with love. He buckled her into her car seat, listening to her chatter about feeding the bunny at daycare. At home, he cooked Lily macaroni and cheese, her favorite dish, and turned on a cartoon about penguins. While she was eating, Jake picked up his phone again and opened Kate's social media. He checked Facebook, Twitter, even her old Pinterest, but found nothing suspicious. Only photos from work, with Lily with him. Ordinary life. Then why does he feel that something is wrong? After Lily fell asleep, Jake sat in the living room, looking at her six-pack scattered on the carpet. The clock showed 9:30. Kate was supposed to be back in half an hour, but he already knew she would be late. In recent weeks, she has always been late. Meetings with clients, she said. But Tom and his damn rumors gave no rest. Jake remembered how Kate had become animated when talking about Marcus, how her voice had wavered as she explained the message. It wasn't just work. Or was it? He stood up, walked into the bedroom, and opened the closet where Kate kept her things. He didn't know what he was looking for: a note, a check, anything. But everything was as usual: dresses, shoes, a box of jewelry. Jake closed the closet, feeling like a fool. He didn't want to be that guy who goes through his wife's things. He trusted Kate. She was his family. But when he went to bed, sleep did not come. He looked at the ceiling, listening to the rain hitting the windows. I need to talk to her, he decided. Right tomorrow. Ask what's going on, without making accusations, just be honest. He imagined Kate laughing, calling him paranoid, explaining that Marcus was just a colleague. This would calm him down. But what if she doesn't explain? What if she lies? The door clicked at 10:45. Kate entered, quietly, so as not to wake Lily. Jake heard her take off her shoes and hang up her coat. He wanted to stand up and say, "We need to talk." But instead he remained lying there, pretending to be asleep. Her steps came closer, and he felt the bed dip as she lay down. She did not touch him, did not hug him as before. She simply turned on her side, and soon her breathing became even. Jake opened his eyes, looking into the darkness. He was afraid. Not Marcus, not the rumors, but the fact that the truth could destroy everything he has: Lily, Kate, their home. Jake sat at the kitchen table, clutching a mug of cold coffee. It was drizzling outside their house in Selwood, and the faint morning light barely broke through the clouds. Lily was asleep in her room, and Kate had left for work before he woke up. Her note on the refrigerator read, "Left early meeting. Kiss Lily for me. Love, Kay." Jake reread the note, but the words, "I love you," seemed empty. Last night she came back late again at 11, smelling of wine and a new perfume that he did not recognize. When he asked where she had been, Kate waved her off. Client's dinner, boring. And she went into the shower without giving him a chance to continue the conversation. He took out his phone and opened their chat. Last night he called her at 9 when she didn't answer his messages. 2 rings and the call was dropped. Half an hour later it came. "Sorry, I was busy. I'll be there soon." Jake looked at the screen, feeling a lump growing inside him. This was the 3rd night in a week that she had been busy. He remembered Tom's words about corporate affairs, the text from Marcus at 5 in the morning, her evasive answers. The trust he had tried so hard to maintain was coming apart at the seams. Jake stood up, walked into the living room, and looked at the photo on the shelf. Him and Kate at their wedding 3 years ago. She is in a white dress, he is in an unusual suit, both are laughing, holding hands. Lily was still in her belly then, a tiny secret that they whispered about at night. He wanted to go back to that moment when everything was simple. But now every look from Kate, every just work, sounded like a lie. He returned to his desk, opened his laptop, and stared at the blank screen. Something had to be done. It was no longer possible to ignore suspicions. They choked me like smoke. Jake remembered Tom mentioning a friend who hired a private investigator when he became suspicious of his wife. It seemed crazy at the time, but now the idea doesn't seem so crazy. He wanted the truth. For Lily's sake, for my own sake. Jake found a business card in the desk drawer. Tom gave it a couple of days ago when they were having coffee in the office. "Just in case," he said with a grin. The business card was simple. Robert Clayton, private detective. Discretion guaranteed. Jake dialed the number, but put the phone down without waiting for an answer. This is betrayal, he thought. Kate is his wife, the mother of his daughter. But then he remembered her distant look, the phone that she now always kept with her, and dialed the number again. "Clayton," a deep voice answered after the second ring. "Hello," Jake coughed, feeling his throat tighten. "My name is Jake. I need a detective. A friend recommended it to you." "Got it." The voice was businesslike, without unnecessary emotions. "What is the situation?" Jake paused, looking at the photo of Lily on the wall. She was in the park, with soap bubbles, laughing. He swallowed. "My wife. I think she might be cheating on me. I want to know for sure." "Okay," Clayton spoke calmly, as if it was a routine thing. "Can you meet today? Let's discuss the details. I'm downtown on Burnside." "Yes," Jake nodded, although his interlocutor did not see him. "At what time?" "At 2. Cafe, Bean, and Brieux. Bring everything you know, names, schedules, habits, and a photo, if available." "Okay," Jake felt his palms sweat. "Thank you." He hung up and leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. It was a step into the abyss. If Kate finds out, she will never forgive. But if she's lying, he must protect Lily and myself. Lily woke up an hour later. Her voice came from the nursery. "Daddy," Jake smiled despite the heaviness in his chest and walked towards her. She stood in her crib holding her stuffed bunny and smiled as if the world was the safest place. "Good morning, champion." He picked her up, kissing her on the cheek. "Are you ready for adventure?" "Yes." Lily clapped her hands. "Zoo?" Jake laughed. He promised her a zoo this weekend, but today, after talking with the detective, he needed something light. "Why not? Let's go see the elephants." He gathered Lily, packed a backpack with snacks, and drove to the Oregon Zoo. The rain had stopped, and the air smelled of wet grass. Lily squealed with delight, pointing her finger at the penguins as they dived into the water. Jake took pictures of her, trying to remember every smile. But even here, amid the laughter and ice cream, thoughts of Kate returned. He checked his phone, no response to his morning message. Took Lily to the zoo. "Are you home this evening?" At 2 o'clock, he left Lily with the nanny, Mrs. Rogers' neighbor, and drove downtown. The Bean and Brew Cafe was cozy, with wooden tables and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Robert Clayton sat in the corner, a man of about 50, wearing a gray sweater and jeans. His face was inconspicuous, but his eyes were tenacious, as if he saw more than he said. Jake? He extended his hand, pointing to the chair opposite. Yes, Jake sat down, feeling out of place. He pulled out a folder with information from his backpack. Kate's photo, her schedule, the agency's address. That's all I know. Clayton leafed through the papers and nodded. Tell me what worries you. Jake told her about Kate's late returns, about the message from Marcus, about her evasive answers, about the party where she laughed too much with the boss. He felt like a traitor for posting all this, but he couldn't stop. Got it. Clayton closed the folder. I'll start today. This usually takes a week. If there is something, I will find it. If not, you will sleep more peacefully. The cost is $1,000, half in advance. Jake swallowed. It was their savings to repair the roof, but he nodded. Fine. One more thing. Clayton looked into his eyes. Be prepared for what you find. The truth is not always pleasant. Jake nodded, but the detective's words settled in his chest like lead. He paid the advance, shook Clayton's hand, and went outside. The air was cold, and he stuck his hands in his pockets as he walked to the car. He felt both determined and guilty. What if he's wrong? What if Kate is just working, and he's ruining their marriage with his suspicions? That evening, he picked Lily up and made dinner chicken nuggets and fries, which she loved. Kate texted at 8, I'm delayed, the client is delaying. I'll be there by midnight. Jake replied, okay, and turned off the phone. He didn't want to hear her voice, didn't want new excuses. Jake sat in the living room, lit only by the dim light of a floor lamp. It was raining outside their house in Selwood, its monotonous pounding the only sound other than the ticking of the clock on the wall. Lily was asleep in her room, her stuffed bunny clutched to her chest. Jake held the laptop in his lap, but the screen remained black. In his hand was a USB drive that Robert Clayton, a private investigator, had given him an hour earlier. It's everything you asked for, he said in the cafe, his voice businesslike, but his eyes sympathetic. Jake didn't open the files right away. He returned home, put Lily to bed, made coffee, and now sat looking at the drive as if it were a bomb ready to explode. 6 days have passed since their first meeting. 6 days when Jake lived in limbo, balancing between hope and fear. Kate kept coming back late, citing meetings and projects. Her smiles were forced and her answers short. Yesterday, she didn't even kiss him before leaving. She just said, "See you in the evening," and disappeared out the door. Jake wanted to believe that he was wrong, that Kate was just tired, that Marcus was just a colleague. But Tom's words about corporate romances, the message at 5 in the morning, her evasive glance, everything formed a mosaic that he could no longer ignore. He inserted the drive into the laptop. The screen lit up, showing a folder called Kate_report. Inside were 3 video files and a document with text notes. Jake swallowed, feeling his heart hammer in his throat. He opened the document first. Clayton was methodical. Dates, places, times. Kate and Marcus met more than once cafes, bars, walks in the center of Portland. But the last line hit like a knife. October 21st, 1930, Boutique Hotel The Pearl, entrance and exit together, video attached. Jake closed the document, his fingers trembling. He clicked on the first video file, labeled 21_10_Pearl. The image loaded. A camera across the street was filming the entrance to the hotel, a trendy place with a neon sign and glass doors. At 19:32, Kate entered the frame. Her black coat was fluttering, her hair was down, and she was smiling. Marcus walked next to her, his hand on her waist. They stopped at the entrance. Kate laughed, adjusting his scarf. They then entered the hotel, huddled close to each other. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. He fast-forwarded the video. At 22:17, they left. Marcus hugged Kate, and she pressed herself against him, her hand sliding over his chest. They walked towards the car, A black BMW parked nearby. The camera caught them through the windshield. Marcus leaned down and Kate kissed him, long, without stopping. Jake watched, unable to look away, until the video ended. He opened the second video from October 19th. The bar is in the center. Kate and Marcus are at a table, their hands intertwined. The third is October 15th, a walk along the Willamette waterfront, where they stop to kiss under a street lamp. Clayton included photos of Kate laughing in Marcus' car, Kate holding his arm on the street, Kate clinging to him in the hotel elevator. The notes confirmed that the meetings took place for at least 3 months, possibly longer. Jake closed his laptop, his breathing heavy. He got up, walked to the kitchen, and poured water into a glass, but his hands were shaking so much that the glass slipped and broke on the countertop. The pieces scattered across the floor like his hopes. He clenched his fists, feeling anger and pain mixing in his chest, burning everything inside. Kate, his Kate, the woman who pulled him out of the darkness after the death of the mother who gave birth to Lily, lied to him. Not just once, not by accident, but for months. He remembered their wedding, Kate in a white dress, her vows, her tears when she said, "You are my home." He remembered how she held Lily in the hospital, whispering to her while he took photographs. Was it all a lie? Or when did it stop being true? Jake sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. He wanted to scream, but was afraid to wake Lily. Instead, he cried quietly, chokedly, as when he buried his mother. The clock showed midnight. Kate was supposed to be back in an hour if her meeting didn't run too long. Jake looked at the pieces on the floor and realized he couldn't pretend anymore. The marriage was over. He didn't know how he would tell her. He didn't know what would happen to Lily, but he couldn't live with this lie. Kate had destroyed their family, and he had no intention of forgiving. He took out his phone and texted Clayton. "Thanks. I received the files. What's next?" The answer came a minute later. "Decide what you want. If you need advice on divorce, I'll give you the contact of a lawyer." Jake put the phone down, feeling determination replacing the pain. He would get Kate out of his life for Lily's sake. For your own sake. Jake stood up, collected the pieces in the trash can, and returned to the living room. He opened the laptop, copied the files to the external drive, and hid it in a drawer. It was his insurance, his proof. He didn't know how the conversation with Kate would go, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't be blind anymore. Jake stood in the bedroom, looking at Kate's open closet. Her dresses, neatly hung by color, shoes on the shelves, a box of jewelry, all this was part of their life, part of her. Now it looked foreign, like artifacts in a museum of days gone by. On the floor were cardboard boxes that he had brought from the garage. Lily was asleep in her room, and the silence of the Selwood house, broken only by the patterning of the rain, weighed heavily on him. Last night, after watching the video from the detective, Jake didn't sleep. Anger and pain gave way to cold determination, and by morning he realized Kate must leave. Their marriage is dead. He started with the dresses, taking them off the hangers and putting them in a box. Every touch of fabric, silk, cotton, wool brought back memories of moments he tried to forget. Kate in that dress on their anniversary, Kate dancing with him at their wedding. He gritted his teeth as he continued. Shoes, bags, cosmetics, everything that belonged to her went into boxes. He worked methodically, as if he was sorting out not his own life, but someone else's trash. By midnight, the bedroom looked bare and Jake taped the last box shut. Kate didn't return home. She wrote at 10 in the evening. "I'm staying late, spending the night with a friend. See you tomorrow." Jake didn't answer. Her lie no longer affected her. It was simply confirmation of what he already knew. He loaded the boxes into the trunk of his Honda, checked that Lily was asleep, and left a note for the babysitter, Mrs. Rogers, who was due in the morning. He then got into the car and drove to West Hills, the area where Kate's parents lived. The West Hills were a different world. Mansions with manicured lawns, high fences, cars that cost more than his yearly salary. The house of Helen and Richard, Kate's parents, stood out even here 3 floors, with columns and panoramic windows. Jake parked the car outside their garage, unloaded the boxes, and stacked them neatly, blocking the driveway. It was petty, but he wanted them to feel like their perfect world was crumbling too. He left a note on the top box. For Kate, marriage over. Jake. Returning home, he checked on Lily. She was sleeping, hugging the rabbit. Jake sat down on the couch, feeling devastation wash over him. He did it. He kicked Kate out of their home. But there was no relief, only emptiness, like after a blow. This morning his phone rang at 8. Helen, Kate's mother. Jake stared at the screen until the call stopped. A minute later, a message came. Jake, what are those boxes at our garage? Call immediately. He sighed, realizing that conversation could not be avoided. After hiring a nanny for Lily, he drove back to the West Hills. Helen met him on the threshold, her face a mixture of anger and bewilderment. She was dressed in a silk robe, her hair styled as if she was preparing for a photo shoot and not for a morning scandal. Richard, her husband, stood behind, wearing a polo and trousers, his gaze cold. What does this mean, Jake? Helen pointed to the boxes still standing near the garage. Did you throw Kate's things like trash? Explain yourself. Jake took out his phone, feeling his determination return. He opened the video from Clayton, the one where Kate and Marcus leave the hotel, hugging, kissing in the car. Without words, he handed the phone to Helen. Look, he said, his voice was even, but inside everything was seething. This is your daughter, with her boss, for months. Helen frowned, but took the phone. Richard moved closer, looking over her shoulder. The video lasted a minute, but that was enough. Helen turned pale, her lips pursed. Richard coughed, looking away. This is a mistake, Helen began, returning the phone. Kate could be confused. She's under pressure at work. You know how it goes. Error. Jake almost laughed, but the laugh got stuck in his throat. It's not a mistake, Helen. This is a novel. Months of lies. I hired a detective. I have dates, photos, and more videos. Want to watch? Don't. Richard raised his hand, his voice harsh. We understand. But Jake, you can't just throw her things away and think that's the end of it. Are you married? You have a daughter. The marriage is over. Jake looked into his eyes. I will not live with a person who betrays me. Lily will stay with me. Kate can take her things and start over. Without us? Helen shook her head, her eyes sparkling. You're in too much of a hurry. Talk to her. She loves you. This is stupidity, momentary weakness. Minute. Jake clenched his fists. She kissed him in the car, spent the night in a hotel, lied to my face. This is not a weakness, it is a choice. And I made my own. Richard stepped forward, his face red. Listen, boy, you can't just throw out our daughter. We'll find a lawyer. You won't take Lily. We'll see. Jake turned to the car. Tell Kate not to come home. I changed the locks. He got into the Honda and drove off without looking back. In the rearview mirror, he saw Helen and Richard standing outside the garage, surrounded by boxes. His hands were shaking the steering wheel, but he felt strangely relieved. He took the first step. Kate is no longer part of his world. Returning home, he hugged Lily, who was drawing at the kitchen table. Her smile was the only thing that kept him afloat. Jake knew there would be battles ahead with Kate, with her parents, with the court. But he was ready. Their marriage was dead, and he had no intention of burying it alone. Jake sat on the living room couch, staring at the empty wall where their wedding photo used to hang. He took it off in the morning, hiding it in a drawer so that Lily wouldn't ask where her mother was. The house in Selwood was silent, only the faint patter of rain on the windows breaking the silence. Lily was asleep in her room, tired from playing with her nanny, Mrs. Rogers, who had left an hour ago. Jake was holding a mug of coffee in his hands, but did not drink. The liquid had long cooled down. His thoughts were busy with the day before. Boxes of Kate's belongings left at her parents' garage, Helen's angry call, their attempts to justify their daughter. He took a step from which there was no turning back, and now waited for Kate to appear. She had to come. She had nowhere else to go. The doorbell hit my nerves. Jake put the mug on the table and went to open it, feeling a cold rage boiling inside him. Kate stood on the threshold, wet from the rain, in jeans and a sweater, without makeup. Her eyes were red and her hair was stuck to her face. She looked less like a marketer from a fashion agency than like a lost person, and for a second Jake felt a pang of pity. But then he remembered the video. Her laugh with Marcus, their kiss in the car, the months of lies. The pity disappeared. Jake, her voice trembled. She stepped forward, but stopped when she saw his gaze. Please let me in. We need to talk. He stepped back silently, allowing her to enter. Kate walked into the living room, looking around as if expecting to see her things. But the cabinets were empty, her traces erased. She froze, wrapping her arms around herself. "Where are my things?" she asked quietly, looking at him. "Your parents," Jake answered, crossing his arms. His voice was even, but inside he was seething. "I left them yesterday. You can take them and leave." Kate shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "Jake, please don't do this. I know you're angry, but we can fix this. For Lily's sake." To correct, he took a step towards her, his voice becoming louder. "You've been lying to me for months, Kate. You slept with Marcus. I saw the video. Hotel, car, bars. Don't talk to me about fix." Kate turned pale and her lips trembled. She sank onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "Stupidity. Marcus, he means nothing. It's just, I'm confused." "Confused?" Jake almost shouted, but held back, afraid of waking Lily. He leaned towards her, his eyes burning. "Were you confused on October 15th when you kissed him on the embankment? Or October 19th when you held his hand in the bar? Or October 21st when I spent the night with him at the hotel? I have dates, Kate. I hired a detective. You chose him over us." Kate raised her head, her face wet with tears. "I didn't mean to." Her voice broke. "It was, like a fog. Work, stress, him being there, and you. You're always busy, Jake. I felt lonely." "Lonely?" He stepped back, feeling her words cut like a knife. "I worked to pay for this house for Lily's kindergarten. I was here with her while you were hanging out with him. Don't you dare blame me." "I don't blame you." Kate jumped up, holding out her hands to him. "I love you, Jake. And Lily, it was a mistake, I swear. I broke up with him. Give me a chance." Jake looked at her, and for a moment he wanted to believe. He remembered how she sat with him in the hospital when his mother died, how she held his hand while he cried. But then he saw something else. Her smile in the video, her lies, her distant look in recent months. This was not the same Kate. That Kate died somewhere between their vows and her kissing Marcus. "Go away," he said, his voice as cold as steel. "You don't live here anymore. Lily will stay with me." Kate froze, her eyes widening. "You can't take her," she whispered. "She is my daughter." "You chose Marcus." Jake stepped toward her, his fists clenching. "You lied to both of us. I won't let you take Lily. If you want to fight, I'll see you in court." Kate swayed as if he had hit her. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came. Instead, she nodded, wiping away her tears. "I will fight, Jake," she said quietly. "For Lily. For us." "We are no more," he answered, opening the door. "Leave." Kate looked at him, her face a mixture of pain and anger. She walked out into the rain without looking back. Lily played on the carpet, building a tower with blocks, her laughter being the only thing that kept him from falling into dark thoughts. He had changed the locks as promised, and now waited for Kate or her parents to take the next step. He knew that they would not give up, not Helen with her perfect hairstyle, and not Richard with his lawyerly arrogance. But he didn't expect what happened this morning. The doorbell rang loudly, like a gunshot. Lily raised her head, her blue eyes looking questioningly at Jake. "Dad, who?" she asked, clutching the red cube. "I don't know, baby." "Play, I'll check." Jake smiled, although everything shrank inside. He went to the door, looked through the peephole, and saw Helen and Richard. Helen was wearing a beige coat, her face tense. Richard, in a dark suit, looked like he was going to a court hearing. Jake opened the door, leaving the chain on the lock. "What do you need?" he asked, his voice cold. "We need to talk, Jake." Helen folded her hands, her tone sharp but controlled. "This is serious. Let us in." Jake hesitated, but took off the chain. He didn't want Lily to hear the screams and nodded towards the kitchen. "There, don't scare my daughter." Lily looked at the newcomers, but returned to the blocks, humming something about a rabbit. Helen and Richard walked into the kitchen and Jake closed the door behind them, leaving a gap so he could hear Lily. He crossed his arms, leaning against the counter. "Speak," he said, looking at Helen, "and shorter." Helen pursed her lips and her eyes sparkled. "Kate's pregnant, Jake. She told us yesterday. You must correct the situation. Bring her home for the sake of the child." Jake froze, the words hitting like a hammer. Pregnant? He felt the blood drain from his face, but then his anger took over. He almost laughed, but the laugh was bitter. "Pregnant?" he asked, his voice trembling with sarcasm. "And you think this is my child?" "Kate was so busy with her job that we weren't close for months. It's not mine, and you know it." Like it if you believe that the truth hurts the most. Subscribe to find out what Jake does after this devastating blow. Richard stepped forward, his face red. "Watch your language, boy. This is your wife. You can't just throw her out and think it's over. You have a daughter together, and now, perhaps, another child." "Maybe." Jake looked him in the eye, his fists clenching. "I saw the video, Richard. She slept with Marcus for months. If she's pregnant, go to him. It's his problem, not mine." Helen shook her head, her voice becoming quieter, almost pleading. "Jake, you don't understand. Kate is desperate. She made a mistake, but she loves Lily. And you. This baby, he could be your chance to start over." "Start again?" Jake stepped back, his voice getting louder. "She lied to me, Helen. Kissed him, stayed in hotels while I was here with Lily. You've seen the video. Don't tell me about the odds." Richard slammed his fist on the counter and Jake's mug jumped. "Enough, Jake. You won't take Lily. We will hire the best lawyers. You don't stand a chance against us. Think about the baby, about Kate. Give her back or you'll regret it." Jake felt fear run down his spine, but he didn't look away. He thought about Lily, about her smile, about the way she called him Dad. He won't let these people, with their money and threats, take her away. "Will I regret it?" he repeated, his voice as cold as steel. "Try it. I'll find a lawyer. I have proof of Kate's infidelity. The court will not give Lily to a man who abandoned his family for an affair. Now get out of my house." Helen grabbed Richard's hand, her eyes shining with tears. "Jake, please. Think about Lily. She deserves a family." "Lily has me," he said, opening the kitchen door. "Go away." Richard gave him one last look of rage and walked out, pulling Helen with him. Jake walked them to the door, closed the lock, and leaned against the wall, feeling his knees shake. Pregnant. This word echoed in my head. He did not believe that the child was his Kate herself admitted that Marcus was not just stupid. But Richard's threat was real. They could hire lawyers to squash him in court. He couldn't lose Lily. Jake returned to the living room, where Lily was building a tower. She looked at him and smiled. "Dad, look. Hi. Cool, baby." He sat down next to her, forcing himself to smile. "Let's make it even higher." While Lily was adding blocks, Jake took out his phone and found the contact for the lawyer Clayton recommended. He wrote, "Need help with divorce and custody. Urgent." The answer came a minute later. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. my office. Bring all the evidence." Jake sat in the courtroom, his hands clutching a folder of documents. The courtroom in the Portland County Courthouse was cold, with high ceilings and wooden benches that smelled of varnish. Outside, it was drizzling with the usual Oregon November rain, but inside, Jake could feel his palms sweating. It was the day of Lily's temporary custody hearing, and although his lawyer, Laura Graham, insisted they were in a strong position, he couldn't shake the fear. Kate's parents threatened to get lawyers, and although Kate disappeared after their last fight, Jake knew her family wouldn't give up. Laura, a woman in her 40s with short dark hair and a sharp gaze, sat nearby, looking through her notes. She took his case immediately after he showed her the video and the detective's report. "We have ironclad proof," she said then, and Jake believed it. But now, sitting in front of the judge, he felt vulnerable, as if his life depended on someone else's decision. On the bench opposite sat Helen and Richard, Kate's parents. Helen was in a strict gray suit, her face a mask of restrained anger. Richard, wearing an expensive jacket, was whispering to his lawyer, an older man with gray hair. Kate was not there. Jake noticed this immediately, and his heart sank not from pain, but from a strange mixture of relief and disappointment. He expected her to show up, beg or argue, but her absence spoke for itself. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a tired look, tapped her gavel. "Case number 472, custody of Lily Ann Wilson. Introduce yourself." Laura stood up. "Laura Graham, introducing Jake Wilson, the child's father." Richard's lawyer, Mr. Crow, stood up. "Henry Crow, representing Kate Wilson, the child's mother, through her parents, Helen and Richard Harris." The judge nodded. "Where is Mrs. Wilson?" Crow cleared his throat, his tone even. "My client was unable to attend due to personal circumstances, but her parents are authorized to represent her interests." Jake clutched the folder. Personal circumstances. He had heard rumors from Kate's acquaintances that she had left Portland, possibly with Marcus. Someone saw her at the airport with a suitcase. Someone mentioned Los Angeles. Jake didn't ask. He didn't care where she was as long as Lily stayed with him. "Okay," the judge adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Wilson, your side." Laura began, her voice clear and confident. She presented Lily's birth certificate, which lists Jake as the father, emphasizing that he was the primary caregiver from the moment of birth. Then she got to the main point. "Your Honor, we present evidence of Mrs. Wilson's infidelity that establishes her unreliability as a parent. We have video footage and a private investigator's report showing that Mrs. Wilson carried on an affair with a coworker, Marcus Davis, for several months while Mr. Wilson cared for the child." Laura handed the judge a USB drive and printed photographs. Kate and Marcus at the hotel, in the car, on the embankment. Jake watched the judge review the materials, her face unreadable. Helen squeezed Richard's hand, her lips trembling. Jake felt their gazes, but did not look in their direction. "Mr. Wilson," the judge looked up. "Tell me how you take care of your daughter." Jake stood up, his voice quiet but firm. "Lily is my world. I get up with her every morning, prepare breakfast, and take her to kindergarten. I read to her before bed, walk in the park. I know what kind of juice she likes. Kate, she was busy with work, often absent. I've been alone with Lily for the last few months. She's happy with me, and I want her to stay that way." The judge nodded, making notes. She then turned to Crow. "Your side." Crow stood up, straightening his tie. "Your Honor, my clients, Mrs. Wilson's parents, claim that their daughter is in a difficult emotional situation, but she loves Lily and wants to be a part of her life. Mr. Wilson acts impulsively, kicking his wife out of the house and limiting her access to the child. We ask for joint custody until all the circumstances are clarified." Laura objected. Mrs. Wilson did not show up for the hearing, which speaks volumes about her priorities. She had no contact with the child after leaving home. Mr. Wilson, on the other hand, provides stability. Joint custody in this situation is not in Lily's best interests. The judge raised her hand to stop the argument. She looked over the documents again, her fingers tapping on the table. Jake held his breath, feeling fear tightening his chest. What if the judge rules against him? What if Lily is given to Kate? "Based on the evidence presented," the judge began, "and given Mrs. Wilson's absence, I am awarding temporary full custody of Lily Ann Wilson to her father, Jake Wilson, until the next hearing in 3 months. Mrs. Wilson must appear in person to challenge the decision." Jake exhaled, his shoulders slumping. Laura touched his arm, whispering, "We did it." Helen covered her face with her hands. Richard clenched his teeth, but they were silent. Crow nodded, gathering up the papers, his face stony. The judge tapped her gavel, and the courtroom emptied. Jake went outside, where the rain had turned to a light drizzle. He got into the car, feeling the fatigue rolling in like a wave. The relief was palpable, but it was mixed with heaviness. Kate didn't come. She abandoned Lily, just as she abandoned him. The rumors about her leaving with Marcus seemed true, and although it should have been exciting, Jake only felt empty. Returning home, he hugged Lily, who was drawing in the living room under the supervision of Mrs. Rogers. Her smile, her daddy, drove away the shadows. Jake thanked the nanny and sat down with Lily, helping her finish drawing the sun on her picture. "Beautiful baby," he said, kissing the top of her head. "Well done." Laura called in the evening, confirming that temporary custody was a good sign. "If Kate doesn't show up, we will seek full custody," she said. Jake nodded, but didn't answer. He didn't want to think about Kate. He wanted to think about Lily, about how to protect her from this chaos. Jake woke up to the sound of his alarm clock, his hand groping for his phone on the nightstand. 6 in the morning. It was still dark outside their Selwood home, but the rain had finally stopped, leaving the air fresh and cool. He stretched, feeling his muscles ache. Yesterday, he spent half the night fixing a leaking faucet in the bathroom, trying to save money on plumbing. Life as a single father was more difficult than he expected, but Jake managed. For Lily, he was ready to do anything. He walked into the nursery where Lily was sleeping, hugging her stuffed bunny. Her blonde curls fluttered across the pillow, and Jake smiled as he looked at her. It had been 2 weeks since the court had awarded him temporary custody, and although Kate's shadow still hung over him, rumors of her leaving with Marcus, threats from her parents, Lily was his anchor. He quietly straightened the blanket and headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Pancakes were sizzling on the stove, the only thing he knew how to cook without the risk of starting a fire. Lily loved them with maple syrup, and Jake tried to make the morning special, even if it meant getting up half an hour early. He sliced a banana, put down her favorite penguin mug, and turned on the coffee machine. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen, and Jake felt the loneliness that haunted him at night recede. "Dad," Lily ran into the kitchen. Her unicorn pajamas were a little too big, the sleeves hanging loose. She climbed onto a chair, looking at the pancakes with delight. "With syrup?" "Of course, champ." Jake placed the plate in front of her, pouring syrup. "Eat, otherwise we'll be late for kindergarten." Lily nodded, concentrating on spreading the pancake. Jake sat across from him, sipping his coffee. He looked at her and thought how much she looked like him, the same green eyes, the same stubborn look as she tried to stack the blocks into a perfect tower. Kate was in her too, in her curls, in her smile, but Jake tried not to think about it. Kate left, and he didn't know if she would come back. Rumors said she was in California, but no one knew for sure. Her parents remained silent after the trial, and this silence was more frightening than their threats. After breakfast, Jake drove Lily to daycare 2 blocks away. She waved to him from the window, holding a drawing that she promised to finish by evening. Jake smiled, but as he got into the car, he felt a pang of loneliness. He was busy during the day work, kindergarten, shopping, but the nights were hard. The house seemed empty without Kate, without her laughter, without even her excuses. He missed not the Kate who lied, but the one who had been before his partner, his love. But Kate disappeared, and Jake learned to live without her. Neighbors helped as best they could. Mrs. Rogers, the elderly widow across the street, brought homemade cookies and sat with Lily when Jake was late at work. The Garcia family across the street invited them to a barbecue, and their son, 5-year-old Mateo, became Lily's best friend. Jake was grateful, but he felt like an outsider at these gatherings. Everyone asked about Kate, and he mumbled something about separated so as not to go into details. The truth was too hard. That evening, after kindergarten, Jake decided to take Lily to Mount Tabor Park. The weather had cleared, and the setting sun was turning the sky orange. Lily ran ahead, her jacket fluttering, and she held a ball in her hands. The park was full of families' parents with strollers, children on swings, dogs chasing frisbees. Jake walked behind Lily, making sure she didn't fall, and tried not to think about how he and Kate walked here when Lily was a baby. "Dad, catch it." Lily threw the ball, but it flew into the grass. She laughed as she ran after him, and Jake caught up with her, scooping her up into his arms. "What, champion, have you decided to make me run?" He spun her around, and Lily squealed with joy. "More," she demanded as he set her down. They played until the sun set, and Lily was tired. Jake sat down on the bench, and she sat next to her, chewing on the apple he took out of his backpack. The park became quieter, and Lily suddenly pressed herself closer to him, her small hand resting on his. "Daddy loves," she said, looking at him. Her voice was serious, as if she wanted him to know this for sure. Jake froze, his throat tightening. He looked into her eyes, the same as his, and felt tears welling up. Lily had never spoken like that before, and these words, simple and pure, broke through his defenses. He hugged her, pressing her to his chest, and tears streamed down his cheeks. "Daddy loves you too, baby," he whispered, kissing the top of her head. "More than anything else." Lily smiled, not understanding why he was crying, and returned to her apple. Jake wiped his face with his sleeve, feeling the loneliness recede. Lily was here, and that was enough. He could be alone, he could fight her parents, the court, anything, as long as she was around. They returned home when it was already dark. Jake put Lily to bed by reading her The Glutton Caterpillar, her favorite book. She fell asleep halfway through, and he quietly left, leaving the nightlight burning. In the living room, he sat on the sofa, looking at the blocks scattered on the carpet. The loneliness returned, but now there was hope. Lily said, "Daddy loves you," and that meant more than all the victories in court. He took out his phone to check his email, but instead opened a photo album. There were pictures of Lily, in the zoo, in the park, with a drawing in the kindergarten. Jake smiled, feeling his strength return. Jake parked his Honda in front of the Selwood Daycare Center and glanced at his watch. 5:45 p.m. He was late for a parent-teacher meeting, having been late at work due to a system glitch that the whole team had to fix. The rain, usual for December in Portland, left puddles on the asphalt, and Jake, jumping over them, mentally scolded himself for not having time to change his clothes. His jeans and startup sweater looked out of place among the parents he knew would show up in neat coats and perfect hair. But Lily was waiting, and that was more important. The inside of the kindergarten smelled of wax crayons and apple juice. Jake walked into the auditorium, where parents had already gathered, sitting on small chairs clearly intended for children. Lily waved to him from the corner where she was drawing with other children under the supervision of a teacher. Jake smiled as he felt the stress of the day lift. More than a month has passed since the court awarded him temporary custody, and life has begun to fall back into a rut. Kate didn't appear, her parents remained silent, and although the fear of their next move remained, Lily was with him, and it gave him strength. "Mr. Wilson, I'm glad you made it in time." The teacher's voice distracted him. She stood at the board, holding a folder with papers. Sarah Miller, about 28, with brown hair pulled back into a messy bun and a warm smile. Her green eyes sparkled as she spoke to her parents, and Jake noticed that Lily adored her. "Sit down, we're just starting." "Thank you," Jake nodded, taking a seat in the back row. He felt out of place among parents discussing school funds and Christmas crafts. His world was simpler: work, Lily, dinner, a bedtime story. But Sarah made the meetings bearable. She spoke easily, with gentle humor, and even such boring topics as the kindergarten schedule sounded almost exciting to her. "Lily was the star today," Sarah said as the meeting ended and the parents began to leave. She walked over to Jake as he helped Lily put on her jacket. She painted a whole farm: rabbits, cows, even a tractor. "Is it true?" Jake looked at Lily, who was proudly holding the drawing. "You're an artist, baby." "For Dad." Lily handed him the paper and Jake laughed, crouching down to hug her. "You always know how to make my day," he said, kissing her cheek. Sarah smiled as she watched them. "She's special, and it seems to take it from you." Jake felt his cheeks warm. He wasn't used to receiving compliments, especially from someone like Sarah, whose kindness seemed genuine. "Thank you." Well, she's my world." "It's obvious." Sarah adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "You and she are a great team." They went outside, where the air smelled of wet grass. Lily ran to the car, jumping over puddles, with Jake and Sarah following behind. He noticed that she was in no hurry to leave, which was nice, if a little awkward. In recent months, he had avoided close contact, afraid of questions about Kate or pity. But Sarah didn't ask. She was just there, and it was strangely calming. Listen, Sarah stopped at her car, a small blue Toyota. On Saturday, the kindergarten and I are having a picnic in Laurelhurst Park. Nothing special, just kids, food, games. Lily will be delighted. Will you come? Jake hesitated. Picnics, gatherings, social events, all of this reminded him of Kate, how she loved such events while he felt out of place. But Lily loved Sarah, and giving up for the sake of her own fears seemed wrong. Sounds great, he said, forcing himself to smile. We will. Great, Sarah beamed. Bring something tasty. Lily said you make great pancakes. She gave away my secret, Jake laughed, looking at Lily, who was spinning around the car. Okay, there will be pancakes. Sarah waved as she got into the car, and Jake felt something in his chest get lighter. He strapped Lily into her car seat, listening to her talk about bunnies, and thought that maybe this picnic was a chance for something new. Not for him, but for Lily. Although, to be honest, Sarah's smile couldn't leave her mind either. On Saturday, the weather was surprisingly clear. Laurelhurst Park was full of children running in the grass and parents laying out blankets. Jake arrived with Lily, carrying a container of pancakes and a bottle of juice. Lily immediately ran to the other children, and Jake found Sarah at the table with treats. She was wearing jeans and a sweater with a colorful scarf, and looked like she was born for days like these. Pancakes delivered, Jake said, placing the container on the table. I hope they pass the test. Oh, I'm a strict judge, Sarah winked, opening the container. But they already smell like victory. They started talking while the children played tag. Sarah said that she has been working in a kindergarten for 3 years, loves children, and dreams of opening her own school. Jake shared stories about his work, about how he once accidentally deleted half the code and saved the project overnight. She laughed, and her laugh was so light that Jake found himself not thinking about Kate for the first time in months. Lily ran up, dragging Sarah by the hand. Miss Sarah, play with us. Oh, I'm in trouble. Sarah pretended to be scared, but winked at Jake. Join us, Dad. Jake hesitated, but Lily tugged at his sleeve, and he gave in. They played hide and seek, ran around the park, and Jake felt the fear that had been holding him melt away. Lily squealed when Sarah found her behind a tree, and Jake noticed how naturally Sarah interacted with his daughter. Lily became attached to her, and it was both joyful and scary. When the picnic was over, Sarah helped Jake pack his things. Lily fell asleep in the car, and they stood in the parking lot, watching the sunset. Thanks for today, Jake said, feeling awkward. Lily had fun. Me too, Sarah smiled, adjusting her scarf. You and her are great. Come again, okay? Definitely, he replied, and this time it wasn't just politeness. He got into the car, watching Sarah drive away. There was warmth in my chest, but the fear did not disappear. He wasn't ready for anything new, not after Kate. But Lily deserved joy, and if Sarah could give it, Jake was willing to try. Jake stood at the stove, stirring macaroni and cheese, while Lily drew at the kitchen table, singing a song about a bunny. The winter evening in Selwood was quiet, with only a slight wind whistling outside the window, where a thin layer of snow already lay a rarity in Portland. It had been almost 3 months since the court had awarded him temporary custody of Lily, and life had begun to seem stable. Work, kindergarten, evenings with Lily, rare meetings with Sarah at parent-teacher meetings, or in the park, all this became a routine that gave hope. But today, something in the air felt different than before the storm. The doorbell rang and Jake jumped. Lily looked up, her pencil hovering over the drawing. Dad, who? She asked, her eyes curious but carefree. Probably Mrs. Rogers with cookies, Jake answered, wiping his hands on a towel. He forced himself to smile, although his heart skipped a beat. The neighbor often came by, but not at 8 in the evening. He walked to the door, looked through the peephole and froze. Kate was standing on the threshold. She didn't look the same as before. Her dark hair was dull, pulled back into a messy ponytail, her face was drawn, and there were shadows under her eyes. The jacket was wrinkled, and in his hands was a shabby bag. Jake felt anger and fear mixing in his chest. He hadn't seen her since the day he kicked her out of the house, and the rumors about her leaving with Marcus seemed true. But now she was here, and it didn't bode well. He opened the door without removing the chain. "What do you need, Kate?" His voice was cold, but everything was boiling inside. "Jake, please." Her voice trembled. Her eyes sparkled with tears. "I want to see Lily. I'm back. It's all over with Marcus. I was a fool, but I want to be with my daughter." Jake clutched the door frame, feeling the rage wash over him. He remembered the video, her laugh with Marcus, their kisses, the months of lies. And now she stands here, exhausted, asking for forgiveness. He shook his head. "You won't see her," he said, his voice low but firm. "You left us, Kate." "She left with him while I was fighting for Lily. It's too late now." Kate stepped closer, her hand shaking. "I know what I did," she whispered, "but I have changed. Marcus, he was a mistake. I left him. I want to start over for Lily's sake. Please give me a chance." "Chance?" Jake almost shouted, but held back, afraid that Lily would hear. He took off the chain, but did not let her in, standing in the doorway. "You lied to me, Kate. You chose him over us. Lily is happy and has a stable life. I won't let you ruin everything." Kate began to cry, her shoulders shaking. "She's my daughter, Jake. You can't just take her away. I'm her mother." "Mother?" He stepped towards her, his eyes burning. "Where were you when she cried at night? When I took her to kindergarten, read fairy tales, paid for everything? You were with Marcus, in hotels, in bars. I have a video, Kate. The court is on my side. If you try to take her away, I will crush you in court." Kate covered her face with her hands. Her sobs were quiet but cutting like a knife. Jake felt a pang of pity, but then he remembered Lily, her smile, her "daddy loves" in the park. He couldn't risk it. Kate had already destroyed their family once, and he wouldn't let her do it again. "Leave regularly," he said, his voice softening but remaining firm. "Don't come here. If you want to see Lily, go through the court. But I will fight." Kate raised her head, her eyes full of pain. "I won't give up, Jake," she whispered. "I love her, and I loved you. Did you love it?" He shook his head, retreating. "This is not love, Kate. This is selfishness. Goodbye." He closed the door, clicking the lock, and leaned against it, listening to her footsteps recede in the rain. His heart was pounding, fear and anger fighting inside. What if she really goes to court? What if her parents hire lawyers to squash him? He clenched his fists, pushing away the panic. Lily was with him, and he would do everything to keep it that way. Returning to the kitchen, he saw Lily finishing her drawing of a sun and a rabbit. She looked at him and smiled. "Dad, this is for you." "Cool, baby." Jake sat down next to him, forcing himself to smile. "The most beautiful sun." He hugged her, feeling her warmth drive away fear. But thoughts about Kate did not let go. He knew that this was not the end, that she could come back, and that was scary. He needed support, someone who would understand. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep, Jake called Sarah. They saw each other last week at a picnic, and her number, written down on a piece of paper from Lily's drawing, was in his wallet. He hesitated, but dialed, feeling that he couldn't keep it to himself. "Hello?" Her voice was warm, despite the late hour. "Sarah, this is Jake," he coughed, feeling awkward. "Sorry it's late. It's just, Kate's back. I want to see Lily. I told her to leave, but I don't know what to do." There was a pause on the other end, but then Sarah spoke, her tone soft but confident. "Jake, you did the right thing. Lily needs stability, and you give it to her. If she wants to fight, you have a lawyer, evidence. You are not alone." Jake closed his eyes, feeling her words soothe him. "Thank you. I'm just afraid they'll take her." "They won't take it," Sarah said. "You are a great father. Lily is happy with you. And, if anything happens, I'm here. I can sit with her and help with anything. You have no idea how important this is, he replied, and his voice trembled. Thank you, Sarah. You're welcome, she laughed, and the sound was like a ray of light. See you in kindergarten, right? Yes, Jake smiled, feeling relief for the first time that evening. Good night. Jake sat at the kitchen table, looking at the envelope in front of him. The sender's address was unfamiliar, some town in California, but he recognized Kate's handwriting immediately. Her neat letters, slanted slightly to the right, brought back memories of the days when she would leave notes for him on the refrigerator. Buy milk, love you. Now this letter, delivered in the morning, was something completely different. Jake was in no hurry to open it. He was afraid that Kate would try to come back again, threaten to sue again disrupt the fragile stability he had built for Lily. Lily was playing in the living room, building a tower of blocks under the supervision of Sarah, who had come to help with dinner. Her laughter, interspersed with Lily's exclamations of delight, filled the house with warmth. It's been 2 weeks since Kate showed up on the doorstep, begging to see her daughter, and she's been missing since then. Jake expected calls from her parents, letters from lawyers, but there was nothing. Only this letter, now lying in front of him like the last piece of a puzzle. He took the envelope, tore the edge, and took out a sheet of paper folded in half. The letter was short, handwritten. Jake, I know you don't want to see me, and I don't blame you. I've made so many mistakes that I don't know how to fix them. Marcus wasn't who I thought he was, but that's no excuse. I failed you and Lily. I thought I could go back and be a mother, but I'm not ready. Maybe I never will. Lily deserves better than I can give. You are her world, and I can see it. I waive my rights to her. My lawyer will contact yours to formalize everything. Please take care of her. And forgive me if you can. Kate. Jake read the letter twice, his fingers clenching the paper. He expected a trick, a threat, but there was none. Kate gave up. She left their lives, admitting her guilt. He should have felt triumphant, but instead he felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Not for herself, but for Lily, who may never know why her mother disappeared. He put the letter down, hearing Lily in the living room shouting, "Sarah, look higher." Jake stood up, walked towards them, and stood in the doorway. Lily sat on the carpet, her tower of blocks swaying, and Sarah, in jeans and a sweater, pretended to be afraid that it would collapse. Lily laughed, and Sarah caught her, spinning her around. Jake looked at them, and his heart sank with love for Lily, for this moment, for Sarah, who had become a part of their lives so naturally that he did not notice how it happened. Sarah caught his eye and smiled. Hey, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. A letter from Kate, Jake said quietly so Lily wouldn't hear. She gives up her rights to Lily, wants me to get full custody. Sarah set Lily down on the floor, her face becoming serious. This is good news, right? Yes, Jake nodded, but his voice shook. It's just weird. She left. At all. Sarah walked up to him, touching his arm. You did everything to protect Lily. She's happy, Jake, and it's thanks to you. He looked into her eyes, feeling her words drive away Kate's shadow. Sarah was there, not as a replacement, but as someone who saw him, who saw Lily, and stayed close. He wanted to tell her this, but the fear that had set in after Kate's betrayal held him back. What if he makes a mistake again? What if he's not ready? Dad, play. Lily ran up, tugging at his sleeve. She pulled him towards the cubes, and Jake sat down on the carpet, allowing her to distract him. Sarah joined, and they built the tower until Lily decided it was the tallest in the world. When the tower collapsed, Lily laughed and Sarah pretended to be terrified, causing her to burst into another burst of laughter. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep, Jake and Sarah were sitting on the sofa with mugs of tea. Kate's letter lay on the table like a closed chapter. Jake looked at Sarah, her profile in the soft light of the lamp, and suddenly said, I'm afraid, Sarah, not Kate, not the court. I'm afraid to open up again. After everything that happened, I don't know how to trust. But you make me want to try. Sarah turned to him, her eyes warm but serious. Jake, I'm not rushing you. You and Lily are special. I'm here because I feel good with you, and if you want more, I'll be waiting." He nodded, feeling his fear subside. "I want," he said quietly, "not now, not tomorrow, but I want to build the future. With you. With Lily." Sarah smiled, squeezing his hand. "Then we will build, step by step." They sat in silence, and Jake felt the weight of the past become lighter. Kate left. Her letter was goodbye, and he was free. Not from pain, but from its power over him. He looked at Sarah and saw in her smile the possibility of a new beginning. The next day, Laura, his lawyer, confirmed that Kate had signed the papers renouncing her parental rights. The court awarded Jake full custody of Lily. He called Sarah to share the news, and she suggested they celebrate at the park. They took Lily, bought ice cream, and walked around Laurelhurst, despite the cold. Lily ran ahead, her mittens dangling from the laces. "Sarah, Mom," Lily suddenly shouted, turning around and handing her the fallen scarf. "Hold it." Jake froze, his throat tightening. Sarah stopped too, her eyes sparkling. She took the scarf and sat down next to Lily. "Thank you, honey," she said softly, hugging her. Lily ran on, not understanding what she had done. Jake looked at Sarah, feeling love and acceptance wash over him. She never called anyone that," he whispered. Sarah nodded, wiping away a tear. "That means a lot, Jake. For me. For us." He took her hand, and they followed Lily, their fingers intertwined. The past is left behind, like snow melting under the sun. Jake knew what was ahead of them. A lot awaits conversations, steps, maybe mistakes. But with Lily calling Sarah Mama and Sarah by his side, he was ready. For the first time in a long time, he felt that the house was not only the walls, but also the people who were in it. The sun was setting behind the hills of Laurelhurst, turning the sky warm shades of orange and pink. Jake stood in the backyard of their new home, holding a mug of coffee, and watched as Lily, now 5 years old, chased her little sister Emma across the grass. Lily, with her blonde curls tied in a ponytail, squealed with laughter as she waved a toy airplane, while Emma, too, toddled behind her, giggling and waving her chubby arms. Their laughter echoed through the yard, mingling with the chirping of birds and the distant barking of a neighbor's dog. Jake smiled, feeling the warmth spread in his chest. This was his world, his family, and he still couldn't believe it was real. 2 years ago, he had been a different man, broken, fighting for Lily, locked in the pain of Kate's betrayal. Then he did not see the future, only the fear of losing his daughter and the loneliness that choked him at night. But now, standing on the porch of the house he and Sarah had bought last spring, he felt at peace. Not perfect, not without worries, but real. "Hey, dreamer," Sarah's voice distracted him. She walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Her brown hair was pulled back into a loose bun, and there was a trace of baking flour on her cheek. She smiled, clinging to him. "Dinner is almost ready. Are you going to call these bandits, or should I catch them myself?" Jake laughed, wrapping his arm around her waist. "I think I can handle it. But if they start a riot, you are my backup." "Always," Sarah winked, kissed him on the cheek, and returned to the house, leaving behind her the smell of freshly baked bread. Jake came down into the yard, clapping his hands. "Lily, Emma, dinner. Whoever is first at the table gets an extra piece of the pie." Lily froze, her eyes lighting up. "I," she shouted, grabbing Emma by the hand and dragging her to the porch. Emma protested, but couldn't help but laugh as she stumbled on her short legs. Jake caught up with them, scooped Emma up, and took Lily's hand, leading her into the house. The kitchen was the heart of their home, spacious, with a wooden table littered with Lily's drawings and children's books. Sarah set out plates of fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans, Lily's favorite dinner. Jake strapped Emma into the high chair, and Lily climbed into her seat, proudly showing Sarah her new drawing, an airplane over a rainbow. "This is for you, Sarah, Mom," Lily said, holding out the sheet, "because you love the sky." Sarah beamed as she sat down next to her. "Lily, this is amazing. Let's hang it on the refrigerator, okay?" "Yes," Lily nodded, starting to eat. Jake looked at them, and his heart sank with gratitude. Sarah entered their lives quietly through picnics, parent-teacher conferences, and her kindness to Lily. She became not just a wife, but a partner, friend, mother for Lily and Emma. Their wedding a year ago was a low-key wedding in Mount Tabor Park, with Lily scattering petals and close friends. When Sarah said yes, Jake felt his past, with its pain and betrayal, finally let him go. Kate remained a distant echo. Her letter giving up her rights to Lily gave Jake full custody, and she has not been seen since. Rumors said she lived in California, working for some startup, but Jake didn't look for her. She was part of his history, but not his future. Sometimes he thought about her, especially when Lily asked questions about that mother, but Sarah helped answer, gently and honestly, and Lily accepted it with childish simplicity. After dinner, Jake put Emma to bed by reading her a short story while Sarah and Lily finished making cookies. When the house fell silent, he and Sarah sat on the sofa, turning on an old movie, which they promptly forgot to watch. Jake took her hand, intertwining her fingers. "You know," he said quietly, "I never thought that I would be so happy again. After everything, Kate, the courts, loneliness, you and the girls are my second chance." Sarah turned to him, her eyes sparkling. "You're not the only one who deserves this, Jake. Lily, Emma, you are mine, and I won't let go for anything." He kissed her, feeling love and peace fill him. The past had taught him to appreciate these moments: Lily's laughter, Sarah's warmth, Emma's tiny hands squeezing his finger. He remembered his mother, her struggle, her smile despite the difficulties. She would be proud, he thought, looking at his family. Outside the window, snow fell in soft flakes, covering Laurelhurst. Jake looked at the yard where Lily and Emma would build a snowman in the morning and thanked his fate. His path was long from pain to hope, from loneliness to love. Now he was home, and it was everything he had ever dreamed of. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.